The transition was not peaceful, but it was swift. News of humanity's return spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every world, every station, every ship received the transmissions. Beings who had never heard of humans suddenly found themselves learning about a species that had been extinct for longer than most civilizations had existed. Some welcomed the change. The Vethkai were among the first to openly embrace the Terran Collective. They were a young species, only 300,000 years old, and they had suffered under council taxation for most of that time. Their homeworld was stripped of resources. Their population was kept deliberately small. They had been told this was the price of membership in galactic civilization. Ambassador Corey Lynn arrived on the Vethkai homeworld 2 weeks after the council meeting. He was a patient man with a gentle voice and a talent for building trust. He met with the Vethkai leaders in their modest capital and listened to their grievances. The council takes 70% of everything we produce, the Vethkai Prime Speaker told him. They say it is for the common defense, but we have never seen this defense. We have only seen poverty and hunger. Lynn nodded sympathetically. That ends today. The Terran Collective does not believe in exploitation. We will help you rebuild your economy and develop your resources for your own benefit. Within months, human agricultural experts had introduced new farming techniques that doubled the Vethkai crop yields. Human engineers helped build power plants that freed them from dependence on council energy supplies. Human teachers opened schools where young Vethkai learned skills that had been denied to their species for generations. The Vethkai wept with joy. For the first time in their history, they saw a future that did not involve servitude, but not everyone welcomed the change. The Cathari had ruled as the dominant power in the galaxy for millions of years. They had grown accustomed to being obeyed, to having their decisions accepted without question. The idea of becoming equals with lesser species was unbearable to them. High Councilor Metholan called a secret meeting of the Cathari military leadership. They gathered in an underground bunker beneath the council chambers, where they believed no human technology could detect them. We cannot accept this humiliation, Metholan said. Our ancestors built this council. Our fleets have kept the peace for eons. We will not bow to creatures who abandoned the galaxy for 800,000 years. Fleet Commander Vershanik agreed. Our forces in the Outer Rim are still loyal. If we strike quickly, before the humans can consolidate their position, we may be able to destroy their command structure. The decision was made. 300 Cathari warships launched a surprise attack on human positions in the Outer Rim territories. They came fast and hard, weapons blazing, determined to prove that the old order would not die easily. The battle lasted approximately 4 hours. General Eric Palmer commanded the defense from the bridge of his battleship, the Starfall. He had known the attack was coming. Human surveillance technology had detected the Cathari preparations days in advance. He had simply chosen to let them make the first move. Lieutenant Megan Price coordinated the fleet from her station beside him. She was young but brilliant, with an intuitive understanding of space combat that bordered on supernatural. Enemy fleet entering weapons range, she reported. 312 vessels. Standard Cathari attack formation. Palmer watched the display calmly. Disable their weapons first. Then their engines. Do not destroy any ships unless absolutely necessary. Understood, General. The human ships moved with perfect coordination. They did not simply outgun the Cathari armada. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and dismantled the attack without destroying a single enemy vessel. Human weapons were precise to the atomic level. They could disable a ship's weapons without even scratching its hull. One by one, the Cathari ships went dark. Their weapons powered down. Their engines sputtered and died. They were left drifting, helplessly in space, completely at the mercy of the human fleet. But mercy came. All Cathari vessels, Palmer broadcast. Your attack has failed. Your ships have been disabled, but not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. We are sending rescue vessels to tow you back to your territory. Go home. Tell your leaders what happened here today. Tell them that we could have killed you all, but we chose not to. Tell them to consider what that means. The Gathari surrendered. There was nothing else they could do. Within a week, Metholan had signed a peace agreement. The Cathari would accept the new order. They would give up their special privileges. They would become one species among many, no longer rulers but participants. Meanwhile, the work of building a new galaxy continued. Dr. Olivia Hart led a team of researchers to the Forgotten Worlds, planets that had been abandoned or stripped by Council exploitation. She wanted to find the species that had been left behind. On Tellus 4, she found the Marathi. They were small beings with large eyes and delicate hands. They lived in caves and ate fungus. The Council had classified them as non-sentient for bureaucratic convenience, which meant they had no rights and no representation. Hart spent days living among them. She learned their language, which was complex and beautiful. She listened to their songs, which told stories going back thousands of years. She watched them create art and solve problems and care for their young. You are people, she told their elder through her translator. You have always been people. The Council lied about you so they could take your world without guilt. The elder trembled. You see us. You really see us. We see you, Hart confirmed. And the lies end today. You will have representation in the new Council. You will have rights and protections. No one will ever call you non-sentient again. The Marathi elder made a sound that Hart's translator identified as weeping. We waited so long. So many generations. We thought no one would ever come. We came, Hart said, and we're not leaving. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human teams found oppressed species and lifted them up. They found corrupt officials and removed them from power. They found systems that had been designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many, and they tore those systems down. It was not easy. It was not quick. But it was happening. The galaxy was changing, and nothing could stop it now. The year was 3047 by Earth's calendar when humanity first made contact with the Galactic Council. It was the greatest moment in human history. For thousands of years, people had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now, they had their answer. The Council was made up of 12 ancient species who had ruled the Milky Way galaxy for millions of years. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They had watched young species crawl out of their oceans, build cities, discover fire, and eventually reach for the stars. Most of these species died out. Some destroyed themselves in wars. Others were wiped out by disease or cosmic disasters. But a few survived long enough to join the galactic community. Humans were the newest addition to this community. They had just invented faster-than-light travel and built their first colony ships. They were excited and eager to explore the universe. They sent ambassadors to meet the Council and learn about their new neighbors. Commander Lisa Grant was one of these ambassadors. She was a tall woman with gray eyes and short brown hair. She had spent 20 years in the Earth Space Fleet and had commanded 3 different ships. Now she led the diplomatic mission to Axios Prime, the Council's capital world. The Council welcomed the humans with speeches and ceremonies. They gave them gifts and showed them wonders beyond imagination. But Lisa noticed something strange. Behind the smiles and kind words, she saw fear in their eyes. The Council was afraid of humanity. She reported her concerns to Earth, but her superiors told her not to worry. The Council had been friendly so far. There was no reason to expect trouble. Meanwhile, in the great halls of Axios Prime, the Council held secret meetings. The Cathari High Speaker, a tall serpentine being named Vod Talax, addressed the assembled leaders. His scales shimmered like oil on water as he spoke. "These humans are dangerous," he said. "They breed too quickly. They adapt too well. They ask too many questions. In just 10,000 years, they went from living in caves to traveling between stars. No other species has advanced so fast." The luminary delegate nodded her glowing head in agreement. "They are unpredictable. Their emotions are volatile. They wage war against each other for the smallest reasons. What will they do when they turn their aggression outward?" "We should contain them," suggested the Vor ambassador, a massive creature covered in thick gray hide. "Limit their expansion. Keep them confined to their home system." "That might not be enough," Vertelax replied. "I have studied their history. Every time someone tried to contain humans, they found a way out. They are like water. They flow around obstacles and find new paths." The debate continued for days. Some council members wanted to welcome humanity fully and hope for the best. Others wanted to take action before it was too late. They discussed options ranging from trade restrictions to outright extermination. No decision was reached. Back on Earth, life continued as normal. People went to work, raised families, and dreamed of the future. Colony ships carried settlers to new worlds. Scientists made new discoveries every day. Humanity was growing and spreading across the stars. Then, without warning, it all stopped. On a quiet Tuesday morning in 3052, every human in the galaxy simply vanished. It happened all at once, across every planet, every ship, every station where humans lived. One moment they were there. The next moment they were gone. Colony ships were found drifting empty in space. Cities on a dozen worlds went silent. The streets were empty. The houses were empty. Even the food was still on the tables, growing cold. The council sent investigators to find out what happened. They searched Earth from pole to pole. They examined every human ship they could find. They interviewed witnesses from other species who had been working alongside humans when the disappearance occurred. They found nothing. No bodies, no messages, no signs of struggle or violence. It was as if humanity had simply decided to leave and taken nothing with them. Commander Lisa Grant was among the last to vanish. Her ship, the Horizon, had been exploring the outer reaches of the galaxy when the disappearance happened. A Vethkai trading vessel found the ship 3 months later, drifting near a strange spatial anomaly. The traders boarded the Horizon carefully. They found the ship in perfect condition. The lights were on. The engines were running. But the crew was gone. All 500 of them had vanished without a trace. The only clue was a final transmission, recorded just before the disappearance. It was Commander Grant's voice, calm and steady despite the strangeness of her words. "This is Commander Lisa Grant of the colony ship Horizon. We found something. Something old. Something that was waiting for us. It showed us things. Things we never imagined. We understand now. We're going home." The transmission ended there. No one knew what she meant by home. Earth was still there, empty and abandoned. The colonies were still there, silent and still. Where had the humans gone? The council debated the mystery for years. Some believed humanity had destroyed itself somehow, perhaps with a weapon that left no trace. Others thought they had been taken by some unknown power. A few suggested that humans had simply evolved beyond physical form and ascended to a higher plane of existence. Eventually, the council gave up trying to understand. They declared humanity extinct and closed the matter. Over the following centuries, they divided up human territory among themselves. They studied human technology and artifacts. They wrote histories that painted humans as a curious, but ultimately failed species. Time passed. Centuries became millennia. Millennia became eons. The council continued to rule the galaxy. New species rose and joined the community. Old species faded and died out. Wars were fought and peace treaties were signed. The universe went on. 800,000 years after the Great Vanishing, no one remembered humanity anymore. Their name appeared only in old databases and dusty archives. Their worlds had been resettled by others. Their artifacts sat in museums, unlabeled and forgotten. The Galactic Council had seen many species come and go. Humanity was just another footnote in the long history of the galaxy. They were gone and would never return. Or so everyone believed. Deep in the void between galaxies, far from any star or planet, something stirred. Ancient engines that had slept for millennia began to wake. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark for longer than most civilizations had existed. Voices spoke in a language that had not been heard in 800,000 years. The humans were coming home, and they were bringing everything they had learned with them. The great chamber on Axios Prime had not changed much in 800,000 years. The same crystalline walls rose toward a ceiling lost in shadows. The same ancient seats held the representatives of the 12 ruling species. The same arguments about trade routes and border disputes filled the air. High Counselor Metholan of the Kethari sat at the head of the chamber. He was a direct descendant of Vartalax, though he had never heard the old warnings about humanity. Those records had been lost long ago, buried in archives that no one bothered to read anymore. Today's meeting was about a minor border conflict between the Vorn and the Luminari. Both species claimed the same asteroid field, and neither wanted to give way. It was a small matter, but the Council took such things seriously. Small conflicts could grow into large wars if left unattended. Metholan was about to call for a vote when the alarms started. Every warning system in the chamber activated at once. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing sensor data from across the galaxy. What is happening? Metholan demanded. The answer came from everywhere at once. Sensors in 100 different star systems were detecting the same thing. Massive spatial distortions were appearing throughout the galaxy. Energy signatures unlike anything in Council records were lighting up the darkness. Between stars. Then the ships emerged. They came through the distortions like giants stepping through doorways. Each ship was enormous, larger than anything the Council had ever built. They were shaped like great silver teardrops, smooth and elegant and utterly alien. And there were thousands of them. Junior Ambassador Kira of the Luminari was the first to receive the transmission. It came on all frequencies, in all known languages, and in dozens of tongues that no one recognized. This is Admiral Nathan Cole of the Terran Collective. We have returned. We come in peace, but we will not be denied. Request immediate audience with the Galactic Council. Humanity is home. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted questions and demands. Guards rushed to their posts. Emergency protocols that had not been used in millennia were activated. Metholan tried to restore order. Silence. Everyone be silent. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. When it did, the High Counselor turned to his advisors. Humanity? Is this some kind of joke? Humans have been extinct for 800,000 years. The ships are real, one advisor replied, studying the sensor data. We have visual confirmation from multiple sources. They match no known design in our databases. The transmission came from the largest vessel, another advisor added. It is approximately 12 kilometers long. That is 3 times the size of our largest dreadnought. Metholan felt cold fear creeping up his spine. He had ruled the Council for 2 centuries. He had faced wars and disasters and political crises. But he had never faced anything like this. Far above Axios Prime, Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn. He was an older man with silver hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. He did not need symbols to prove his authority. Beside him stood Dr. Maya Sullivan, Chief Diplomatic Liaison. She was younger than the Admiral, with dark skin and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. On Cole's other side stood General Eric Palmer, commander of all ground forces. He was a broad-shouldered man with a scarred face and hands that had seen countless battles. He watched the sensor displays with quiet intensity. "They're panicking," General Palmer observed. "Look at their fleet movements. No coordination. No strategy. Just fear. Can you blame them?" Dr. Sullivan asked. From their perspective, a species they thought was extinct just appeared with a fleet that could destroy them all. Admiral Cole nodded slowly. "Remember why we're here. We didn't come back to conquer or destroy. We came back to set things right. Think they'll shoot first?" Palmer asked. Cole smiled slightly. "They won't get the chance. But I don't think they will. They're afraid, but they're not stupid. They can see what we have. They know they can't win." Dr. Sullivan studied the data on her personal display. "I'm reading 47 Council warships in the system, 200 support vessels, orbital defense platforms around the planet. It's a significant force by their standards." "By their standards," Palmer repeated. "We have 12,000 ships in this system alone. Another 50,000 spread across the galaxy. And that's just the advanced fleet." Cole raised his hand for silence. The Council was responding to their transmission. "Terran vessel, this is High Counselor Metholan of the Galactic Council. Your claims are unexpected. Humanity has been absent from this galaxy for over 800 millennia. We require proof of your identity and an explanation of your intentions." Dr. Sullivan stepped forward to the communication console. "High Counselor, this is Dr. Maya Sullivan, Diplomatic Liaison for the Terran Collective. We understand your confusion. We are prepared to provide whatever proof you require. We request a formal audience at your earliest convenience to discuss our return and its implications for the galaxy." There was a long pause. Cole could imagine the frantic discussions happening in the council chamber right now. They were trying to decide whether to fight, flee, or talk. Finally, Metholan's voice returned. "Your request for audience is granted. You may send a delegation to the council chamber. No more than 5 individuals. No weapons." Palmer snorted. "No weapons. As if we need them." Cole turned to his officers. "Maya, you'll lead the delegation. Take Captain Daniel Brooks for security. Dr. Olivia Hart for cultural expertise. Keep it small and non-threatening." Dr. Sullivan nodded. "Understood. What are my parameters?" "Tell them the truth," Cole said simply. "All of it. They need to understand what we are now and why we came back. They need to understand that the galaxy is going to change, whether they like it or not." Sullivan and her team prepared for departure. A small shuttle carried them down to the planet's surface, passing through a gauntlet of nervous council warships. None of them fired. None of them even moved as the shuttle descended through the clouds of Axios Prime. Sullivan looked out the window at the ancient city below. Towers of crystal and metal stretched toward the sky. Flying vehicles swarmed like insects. Billions of beings lived and worked here, unaware that their world was about to change forever. "Ready?" Captain Brooks asked. Sullivan took a deep breath. "We've been ready for 40 million years. Let's go make history." The council chamber felt smaller than it looked in the recordings. Dr. Maya Sullivan walked down the central aisle with her team, past rows of alien dignitaries who stared at them with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She kept her face calm and her pace steady. She had practiced this walk 1,000 times in simulation. Now she was doing it for real. Captain Daniel Brooks walked beside her, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. He was a tall man with short black hair and the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death many times. Dr. Olivia Hard followed behind him, her mind already analyzing the body language of every species in the room. High Counselor Metholin watched them approach from his elevated seat. His serpentine body was coiled tightly, a sign of stress in Cathari physiology. The other council members shifted nervously in their places. Sullivan stopped at the speaking platform and bowed slightly. High Counselor, members of the Galactic Council, thank you for receiving us. Let us skip the formalities, Metholin said, his voice cold. 800,000 years ago, your species vanished without explanation. Now you return with a fleet that dwarfs our combined military strength. You claim to come in peace, but your actions suggest otherwise. Explain yourselves? Sullivan had expected this. She nodded calmly. You want to know where we went and why we came back. I will tell you everything. She activated a small device on her wrist. Holographic images appeared in the air above her, showing stars and galaxies and strange geometries that hurt the eyes to look at. 800,000 years ago, humanity discovered something. A doorway. A gateway to another dimension, built by beings far older than this galaxy. We didn't understand what it was at first. We only knew that it called to us, pulled at something deep in our souls. So we stepped through. The images shifted, showing swirling colors and impossible landscapes. Time moves differently on the other side. What was 800,000 years to you was over 40 million years to us. 40 million years of history. 40 million years of growth and change and evolution. A murmur ran through the chamber. 40 million years. The number was almost impossible to comprehend. We built civilizations in that other place, Sullivan continued. We rose and fell and rose again. We explored realities that your science cannot imagine. We fought wars against entities that would drive your philosophers mad. We made mistakes and learned from them. We became something new. Dr. Hart stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. We also found records. The beings who built the gateway had been watching this galaxy for billions of years. They kept records of everything that happened here. Every species. Every war. Every decision made by the Galactic Council. She looked directly at Metholin. We know what the old council planned for us. We found the debates. The discussions about containing humanity. The proposals to limit our expansion. The contingency plans to sterilize our colony worlds if we became too powerful. The chamber went silent. Several council members exchanged guilty looks. The Cathari delegation seemed to shrink in their seats. Those were different times, the Luminary delegate said quickly. Different leaders. We would never consider such actions today. We know, Sullivan replied. And we're not here for revenge. We didn't spend 40 million years growing and learning just to come back and punish you for the fears of your ancestors. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we did come back for a reason. We watched this galaxy from afar. We saw what the Council has become. We saw the corruption and the inequality and the injustice. We saw a young species oppressed and exploited. We saw client races treated as slaves in everything but name. Captain Brooks remained silent, but his hand moved to rest on his hip, where a weapon would normally be. The Council guards noticed. They also noticed that their own weapons had stopped working the moment the humans entered the chamber. Their power cells were dead. Their energy weapons would not charge. How are you doing that? One guard demanded. Brooks smiled slightly. We're not doing anything. Your weapons simply recognize that they're not needed here. Sullivan raised her hand for calm. We didn't come to threaten you. We came to offer you a choice. The galaxy can continue as it has, with the Council ruling unchallenged and the same old patterns repeating forever. Or it can change. It can grow. It can become something better. Methylin's eyes narrowed. And if we choose to resist this change, then you will fail, Sullivan said simply. Not because we will destroy you, but because you cannot stop what is coming. The other species in this galaxy are watching. The Vethkai have already contacted us. So have the Marathi. So have a dozen other races that the Council has ignored or oppressed for millennia. They want change. They will have it, with or without your cooperation. The Vorn ambassador rose from his seat, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber. You speak of change, but what do you actually want? What are your demands? Dr. Hart answered. The Council will no longer rule. It will serve. It will become a forum where all species can negotiate as equals, not a throne from which the powerful dictate to the weak. Trade will be fair. Resources will be shared. No species will be denied representation because of their age or technological level. And who will enforce these rules? Metholan asked bitterly. You? We will help, Sullivan said. But ultimately, the galaxy must govern itself. We're not here to become emperors. We're here to break the chains that have held this civilization back for too long. She stepped closer to the High Counselor's seat, her eyes meeting his directly. You have a choice to make, Metholan. You can fight the tide and be swept away. Or you can adapt and survive. Your ancestors chose fear when they first met humanity. What will you choose? The chamber was silent for a long moment. Every being in the room understood that they were witnessing the end of an era. The galaxy they had known was dying. Something new was being born. Metholan looked at his fellow council members. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something else. Resignation. They all knew they could not win this fight. What happens now? He asked quietly. Sullivan smiled. Now we begin. Together. Outside the chamber, word was spreading across the galaxy. The humans had returned. Nothing would ever be the same again. 1 year had passed since humanity's return, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The old Galactic Council building still stood on Axios Prime, but its purpose had changed completely. Where once the 12 elder species had ruled over thousands of younger civilizations, now representatives from every sentient race in the galaxy gathered to debate and negotiate as equals. The great chamber that had once echoed with the commands of the powerful now hummed with the voices of the many. Admiral Nathan Cole stood at a window overlooking the city. He had been offered countless titles and positions of power. Emperor, Supreme Commander, Eternal Leader. He had refused them all. We didn't come back to rule, he told the assembly when they offered him the throne. We came back to set things right. The galaxy doesn't need another master. It needs freedom. Some did not understand his decision. The Terran Collective had more power than any force in galactic history. They could have taken anything they wanted. Instead, they chose to give. Human technology was shared freely with any species that asked for it. Medical advances that could cure diseases which had plagued civilizations for millennia were distributed without cost. Agricultural techniques that could end famine were taught to anyone willing to learn. Energy systems that could power entire worlds were built and maintained as a gift to the galaxy. But the humans kept their greatest secrets to themselves. The doorway they had found. The other dimension where they had spent 40 million years. The beings who had built the gateway and what they had learned from them. These things remained hidden. The galaxy is not ready. Dr. Maya Sullivan explained when asked about it. We spent 40 million years preparing for what we found on the other side. These civilizations have had only a few 100,000 years. They need time to grow. Sullivan had retired from active diplomatic service. She now spent her days writing a book about humanity's long journey. She called it The Long Walk Home, and it became the most widely read text in the galaxy. Beings of every species studied it to understand who the humans were and where they had come from. She wrote about the early days after the doorway was discovered. She wrote about the decision to step through and leave everything behind. She wrote about the strange realities they had explored and the wars they had fought against beings of pure energy and thought. She wrote about the civilizations they had built and lost and built again. But she also wrote about simpler things. She wrote about love and loss and hope. She wrote about parents who raised children knowing they would never see their home again. She wrote about scientists who spent centuries solving problems that would benefit people not yet born. She wrote about soldiers who fought not for conquest, but for protection. We became something new in those 40 million years, she wrote in the final chapter. But we never forgot what we were. We never forgot that we were human. That is what brought us home. Captain Daniel Brooks did not stay on Axios Prime. He requested command of a deep space exploration vessel and was given the New Horizon, a ship designed to travel to the farthest reaches of the universe. There might be others out there, he explained to Admiral Cole before he left. Other species that vanished like we did. Other civilizations that found doorways to other places. I want to find them. I want to let them know they're not alone. Cole nodded and wished him well. The New Horizon departed into the unknown, carrying a crew of explorers who would spend their lives searching the darkness between galaxies. General Eric Palmer chose a different path. He returned to Earth. The human homeworld had been abandoned for 800,000 years. Other species had claimed it briefly, but something about the planet made them uncomfortable. They said it felt haunted. They said they heard whispers in the wind. Eventually they left, and Earth remained empty. Now the humans were bringing it back to life. Terraforming teams worked to restore ecosystems that had collapsed during the long absence. Forests were replanted. Rivers were cleaned. Cities that had crumbled to dust were rebuilt. Palmer walked through one of these new forests, feeling the sun on his face and the grass beneath his feet. Birds sang in the trees above him. A deer watched him from a clearing and then bounded away. A young reporter followed him, recording everything for the galactic news networks. Everyone wanted to know what the famous general thought about the new galaxy. Was it worth it? She asked finally. 40 million years away from home. Everything you left behind. All the people who died without ever seeing Earth again. Was it worth it? Palmer thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the friends he had lost over the centuries. He thought about the battles he had fought and the enemies he had faced. He thought about the long years of waiting and planning and preparing for this return. We learned something out there, he said slowly. Something important. Something that took us 40 million years to understand. What was it? Palmer looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear as the sun set. You can run from your problems, he said. You can explore every corner of existence. You can become gods among insects. You can build empires that span dimensions and command powers beyond imagination. But eventually, you have to come home. You have to face what you left behind. You have to make things right. He turned to face the reporter. That's what makes us human. Not our technology. Not our power. Not our 40 million years of evolution and advancement. It's our need to belong. Our need to connect. Our need to return to where we started and make it better than we found it. The reporter nodded, moved by his words. What happens now? Palmer smiled. Now we live. We build. We grow. We make mistakes and learn from them. We raise children and tell them stories about where we came from. We become part of this galaxy again, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. He looked back at the forest, at the world his ancestors had called home so long ago. We're finally where we belong, and we're never leaving again. Above them, the stars gleamed with possibility. Somewhere out there, the New Horizon was exploring unknown space. Somewhere, Dr. Sullivan was finishing her book. Somewhere, Ambassador Lin was helping another oppressed species find their feet. And somewhere, in dimensions that no other species could reach, the beings who had built the gateway watched with ancient eyes. They had been waiting for humanity to return. They had known all along that it would happen. The humans had passed their test. Now a new chapter was beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.